Alaska. I'm an old Rite Orthodox Christian living on the banks of the Anchor River in my log cabin in North America's farthest west highway point in the beautiful state of Alaska. Glory to God. Going to do some reading for us tonight like I usually do. So the first reading that I have for us, bear with me a minute. I'm just doing the translating here, and then we'll get into it. Just got back from church. And everything moves a little bit slower up here in Alaska. The first reading that I'm going to do for us is from the ascetical homilies of St. Isaac the Syrian. And we're going to start with homily 4, the ascetical homilies of St. Isaac the Syrian. Do not extol the man who endures bodily hardship and yet gives free rein to his senses. I mean that of hearing and whose mouth is gaping and intemperate, and eyes roaming. If you make it a rule for your soul to practice deeds of mercy, accustom your soul not to seek your justification in other works, lest you find yourself scattering with one hand what you have gathered with the other. For solicitude is necessary in the first instance, whereas breadth of heart in the second. Be it known to you that to remit our debtors their sins is one of the works of righteousness. Then you will see tranquility and luster throughout your entire mind. When you rise above the path of justice, you will cleave to freedom in all your actions. One of the saints spoke of this, saying, "The merciful man, if he be not just, is blind." That is to say, he must give to another man what he has gained by his own labors and hardship, and not what he has through fraud, injustice, and trickery. And the same saint said in another place, "If you wish to sow your seed among the destitute, sow from your own seed. For if you wish to sow from another man's seed, know that what you sow is the most bitter of tares. But I say that if the merciful man does not rise above what is just, he is not merciful. That is to say, he is merciful who not only shows mercy to others by giving from his own means, but also who suffers injustice from other men with joy voluntarily, and not merely keeps and requires justice in his dealings with his fellow men, but also shows them mercy. When a man overcomes justice by mercy, he is crowned, not with crowns awarded under the law to the righteous, but with the crowns of the perfect who are under the gospel. For the ancient law also dictates that a man must give to the poor from his own means and clothe the naked, and his love of his neighbors as himself, and forbids injustice and lying. But the perfection of the gospel's dispensation commands the following: Give to every man that asketh of thee, and of him that taketh away thy goods ask them not again. And further, a man must not merely with joy suffer injustice as regards his possessions and the rest of the external things which come upon him, but he must also lay down his life for his brother. This is the merciful man, and not he that simply shows mercy to his brother by giving him something. And whoever burns within his heart when he sees or hears of something that grieves his brother, such a one is truly merciful, as is the man who, being slapped by his brother, does not act shamelessly and answer abusively, thus grieving his brother's heart. Honor the work of vigil, the consolation may come near your soul. Preserve in reading while dwelling in stillness, that your mind may be drawn toward the wonders of God at all times. Howdy, brothers and sisters. Thanks for joining. I'm reading from the ascetical homilies of St. Isaac the Syrian. Love poverty with patience, that your mind may be collected and secured from wandering. Detest superfluity, that you may preserve your thoughts untroubled. Withdraw yourself from multitudinous affairs, and have your soul as your only concern, so that you may save her innermost tranquility from dispersion. Love chastity, that you may not be disgraced in the time of your prayer to Christ, the judge of the contest. Acquire purity in your actions, that your soul may glisten with joy during prayer, and that at the remembrance of death, rejoicing may be kindled in your mind. Be on your guard against small things, lest you fall into great matters. Be not slothful in your work, lest you be disgraced when you stand in the midst of your companions. And do not be found without provisions for your journey, lest you be left alone by the wayside. Conduct your works with knowledge, lest you abandon your entire course. Acquire freedom in your manner of life, that you may be freed of turmoil. Do not bind your freedom by what affords you pleasure, lest you become a slave of slaves. Love mean apparel as your dress, so that you may set at naught the thoughts which spring up in you. I mean haughtiness of heart and licentiousness. For the man who loves splendid apparel cannot acquire humble thoughts, since necessarily the heart within conforms to the attire without. Who is the man that can acquire a pure mind while loving idle chatter? And who can acquire lowly thoughts while seeking to capture glory from men? Or who can become pure of thought and humble of heart when he is licentious and dissolute in his members? For whenever the mind is drawn away by the senses, it also eats the food of beasts with them. But when the senses are drawn by the mind, they partake together with it of the sustenance of angels. Vainglory is a servant of fornication, but when it is found in monastic discipline, it is a servant of pride. Self-constraint follows humility, but spacious living is united to love of glory. Humility attains to divine vision because of her continual self-constriction, and she adorns the soul with chastity. But vainglory, through its continual turmoil and confusion caused by thoughts which arise from encounters with things, gathers abominable treasures for itself and defiles the heart. And again, vainglory beholds the natures of things with a licentious vision and occupies the mind with deplorable imaginings. But humility spiritually constricts herself by means of divine vision and moves the man who possesses her to glorify God. Do not compare those who work signs and wonders and mighty acts in the world with those who practice stillness with knowledge. Love the idleness of stillness above providing for the world starving and the conversion of a multitude of heathen to worship of God. It is better for you to free yourself from the shackle of sin than to free slaves from their slavery. It is better for you to make peace with your soul, causing concord to reign over the Trinity within you. I mean the body, the soul, and the spirit. Then by your teaching to bring peace among men at variance. For as Gregory the theologian says, it is a good thing to speak concerning the things of God for God's sake, but it is better for a man to make himself pure for God. Love uncouthness of speech, joined with knowledge from inner experience, more than to gush forth rivers of instruction from the keenness of your intellect and from a deposit of hearsay and writings in ink. It is more profitable for you to attend to raising up unto the activity of your conjugations concerning God the deadness of your soul due to the passions than it is to resurrect the dead. Many have accomplished mighty acts, raised the dead, toiled for the conversion of the erring, and have wrought great wonders, and by their hands they have led many to the knowledge of God. Yet after these things, these men who quickened others fell into vile and abominable passions and slew themselves, becoming a stumbling block for many when their acts were made manifest. For they were still sickly in soul, but instead of caring for their soul's health, they committed themselves to the sea of this world in order to heal the souls of others. Being yet in ill health and in the manner I have stated, they lost their souls and fell away from their hope in God. The infirmity of their senses was not able to confront or resist the flame of things that customarily make wild the vehemence of the passions, for their senses still required guarding. I mean that these men should not have seen women at all, or have taken their ease, or gained wealth and possessions, or had authority over others, or been exalted above other men. It is better for you if men think you unlearned and uncouth because of your inexperience in disputation, rather than one of the wise because of your shamelessness. Become poor for humility's sake, and do not amass riches on account of your shamelessness. Confute those who would strive to dispute with you by the strength of your virtues, and not by the persuasiveness of your words. By the meekness and quietness of your lips, put the impotence of the obstinate to silence, and by not speaking, reprove the wanton by the nobility of your life, and those who are shameless as regards the senses by the modest curbing of your eyes. Consider yourself a stranger all the days of your life, wherever you may be, so that you may find deliverance from injury, which is born of familiarity. In every matter, consider yourself to be totally ignorant, so as to escape the reproach which follows the suspicion that you wish to set aright other men's opinions. Let your lips always utter blessings, and you will never be reviled, for revilement begets revilement, and blessing begets blessing. In all things, think that you are in need of teaching, and you will prove wise throughout your life. Do not pass on to another what you yourself have not attained, lest you put yourself to shame and your lie be exposed by a comparison with your life. If you begin to say something profitable, say it as though you yourself are still learning, and not with authority and shamelessness. Judge yourself beforehand and prove to your listeners that you are inferior to them, in order to show them the way of humility and to incite them to hearken to your words and readily to take action. Then you shall be venerable in their eyes, and if possible, speak of these matters with tears, so that both of you and they may be profited, and the grace of God may be with you. If you gain the grace of God and are deemed worthy to revel in the divine vision of God's judgments and of visible creation, which is the first summit of knowledge, prepare yourself, yea, arm yourself against the spirit of blasphemy. Do not take a stand in this battlefield without weapons, lest speedily you be slain by those who lie in wait for you and deceive you. And let your weapons be tears and continuous fasting with prostrations. Beware of reading the doctrines of heretics, for they, more than anything else, can arm the spirit of blasphemy against you. And when you fill your stomach, do not shamelessly search out matters and concepts concerning God, lest you later repent of it. Understand what I say. There can be no knowledge of the mysteries of God on a full stomach. Read often and insatiably the books of the teachers of the church on divine providence, for they lead the mind to discern the order in God's creatures and his actions. Give it strength, and by their subtleness, they prepare it to acquire luminous perceptions and guide it in purity toward the understanding of God's creatures. Read also the Gospels which God ordained for knowledge for the whole world, that you may find provisions for your journey and the might of God's providence for every generation, and that your mind may plunge deeply into wonder at him. Such reading furthers your aim. Let your reading be done in a stillness that nothing disturbs. Be free of all concern for the body and the turmoil of affairs, so that through the sweet understanding, which surpasses all the senses, you may savor that most sweet taste in your soul, which she perceives in herself because of her constant intercourse with these things. Let not the words of experienced men be to you as those of shallow persons and the vendors of words, lest you dwell in darkness till your life's end and be deprived of any profit from them. And lest, like a man confused, you become troubled in the time of warfare and fall into a pit because of a thing that is seemingly good. This shall be assigned to you in whatever matter you wish to penetrate, if you have truly entered into that realm, when grace begins to open your eyes so that you may perceive the divine vision of things such as they are. Then your eyes will immediately start to shed torrents of tears, so much so that they will wash your cheeks by their abundance. Thereupon peace comes to the war of the senses, and it is curtailed within you. But if someone should teach you otherwise, do not believe him. Besides tears, you should not ask any other manifest sign from the body as an indication that you have perceived the truth, except the silence of the activity of the members. That is to say, when the mind is exalted above created things, the body also takes leave of tears and of every movement and sensation apart from its natural vitality. For this knowledge does not stoop to take with itself as a companion figuratively through mental vision the forms of things of the visible world, whether in the body I cannot tell, or whether out of the body I cannot tell, God knoweth. And he heard unspeakable words. All that is heard by the ears can be spoken. He did not hear audible sounds, nor did he see a vision composed of the corporal images of sense perception. But it was by the motions of the understanding, being in rapture, while his will had no fellowship with the body. Eye has never seen such things, nor ear heard the like, and his heart never imagined that the likeness which his diversified knowledge saw would rise up in it through recollection. I mean those things which God is prepared to show the pure of heart by reason of their deadness to the world. This is not corporal vision received by means of the eyes of flesh, through gross distinctions, nor fantasies which they themselves form in their minds in an unreal manner. But this is the simplicity of theoria concerning noetic things and things of faith, which is contrary to partition and divisions that exhibit images composed of elements. Gaze upon the spear of the sun according to your visual power, and only to delight in its rays, but not to investigate the course of its orb, lest you be deprived of your limited visual faculty as well. When you find honey, partake of it with measure, lest becoming satiated you vomit it up. The nature of the soul is light and imponderable, hence she sometimes leaps, desiring to ascend to great heights and learn things that surpass her nature. For often she grasps something from the reading of the scriptures and the divine vision of created things, but when it is permitted and she compares herself with those things she has grasped, she finds herself much inferior and meaner as regards to the measure of her constitution. For her knowledge has entered into such things that she is clothed with fear and trembling in her thoughts, and she hastens under the constraint of timidity to return to her lowly life upon the earth, being ashamed, as it were, that she dared to approach spiritual matters which surpass her. Because of the fear which these things inspire, a certain timidity is born in her, and discretion beckons the soul's mind to practice silence and refrain from shamelessness, lest she perish. And it bids her not to seek things which far surpass her, or search out what is more lofty than she. When you are given the power to understand, understand. Do not act shamelessly with regard to mysteries, but worship silently and give glory, and confess what surpasses comprehension. Just as it is not good to eat too much honey, so it is also not a good thing to probe into glorious utterances, lest desiring to behold things far distant when we have not yet attained to them, owing to the ruggedness of the way, our faculty of vision should grow feeble and be injured. For sometimes, indeed, phantasms are seen instead of the truth, and when the understanding grows weary from its searching, it loses its focus. Thus the wise Solomon has said it well that a man without patience is like a city without walls. There's no need for us to roam about heaven and earth in quest of God, or to send forth our minds into diverse places in search of him. Therefore, purify your soul, O man, and drive away from you all cares which concern things outside your nature, and shroud your soul's perceptions and movements with the veil of chastity and humility. By this means you will discover him that is within you, since mysteries are revealed to the humble. We take small bites of this book. So have patience as you learn. Don't try to grasp everything all at once. Take little bites and think about what you've read and what you've learned. And the knowledge will start to be opened up to you. It will all of a sudden start making sense. Even things that you've known your whole life, when you really read about it slowly and you put it in your heart, think about it. Think about what it really means. And this is also why it's so important to have a spiritual father. And you can ask your spiritual father, tell him what you read, and ask him what it means and how to put it into practice. And beware of theologians. Sometimes we run into people and they want to tell us that they know everything and they want to impress us with so much stuff. And they dump so much stuff on you that you can't possibly take anything back because all you remember is that their mouth just kept going and going and going. Take little bites and meditate on it. So the next reading that I'm going to read for us, let's see if I want to do this one. Maybe not so much this one. Bear with me a moment. And of course, if you have any questions or any of you need prayers, just put it in the chat. There's people around the world praying for all of us all the time. I'm going to pull up a different article for us because I don't want to read the one that I was going to. So I'm going to read a better one for us. This one's for tomorrow, so you're going to be ahead of the game. Tuesday of the second week of Great Lent on prayer. This kind is expelled only by prayer and fasting on the demons. Matthew 17:21. Abstinence should have higher goals, therefore it is supported by prayer. But prayer is also supported by sobriety of mind, lightness and purity of consciousness, which abstinence gives us. Prayer should always be combined with fasting, says St. John Chrysostom. They seem to be connected with each other, prayer and fasting. External restrictions seem to liberate the soul. It wants to speak, it seeks spiritual work. During fasting, the prayerful mood, the desire to pray more often and more clearly, prompt us to a conversation with God. Pay attention to the people on duty. During the periods of fasting, there are noticeably more worshipers in churches. At the evening services, some come on the way home as if in passing. I want to stay in church for at least a quarter of an hour, but there is another dependence. St. Macarius of Egypt says, "He who abstains without prayer, how can he stand without its help?" In families where not all members are disposed to spiritual life, it is during fasting that quarrels and discontent occur. Father Alexander Elchananov has a record. Fasting strengthens the spirit in a person. In fasting, a person goes out to meet angels and demons. Fasting refines the boundary between the visible and the invisible, between the bodily and spiritual worlds. A person becomes more accessible to spiritual influence, but the spiritual world is not only angels and the souls of saints, they are also demons. That is why frequent confession, communion, and prayer are so necessary during fasting. The meaning of fasting in the cleansing of the body and in the purification of the heart. And this is possible only when fasting is combined with repentance and prayer. Priest Sergei Nikolaev, The Merry Time of Lent, on prayer. Prayer by its quality is the abiding and union of man with God, but in action it is the affirmation of the world, reconciliation with God, the mother and at the same time the daughter of tears, the propitiation for sins, the bridge for the passage of temptations, the wall that protects against sorrows, the crushing of strife, the work of the angels, the food of all the bodiless, the future joy, endless work, the source of virtues, the author of gifts, invisible progress, the food for the soul, the enlightenment of the mind, the axe to despair, the indication of hope, the destruction of sorrow, the wealth of monks, the treasure of the silent, the taming of anger, the mirror of spiritual growth, the knowledge of success, the revelation of spiritual order, the harbinger of future retribution, the sign of glory. Prayer to the one who truly prays is the judgment seat and the throne of the judge before the last judgment. Let us arise and hear the sacred Queen of Virtues calls out to us with a high voice and says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and you will find rest for your souls and healing for your wounds. For my yoke is easy and healeth great sins." Matthew 11:28. We who are coming to stand before the King and God to converse with him must not be unprepared to set out on this journey, so that he, seeing us from afar, who have no weapons and garments that those who are before the King should have, will not command his servants to bind us and to reject us from his presence, and to tear our petitions to pieces and throw them in our faces. When you go to stand before the Lord, let your whole robe of your soul be woven of threads, or rather of the pledge of unforgiving malice. If it is not so, then you will not receive any benefit from prayer. Let the whole fabric of your prayer be uncomplicated, for the publican and the prodigal son propitiated God with one word. Venerable John of the Ladder. How can we bow to the mercy of the Lord, asks St. John Chrysostom, and answers, that's right. Let us plant prayer in our hearts, and let us add humility and meekness to it. Especially valuable for God is prayer that comes from a pure heart. It is our heart that God wants. My son, give thy heart unto me. He calls upon man, Proverbs 23:26. A prayer is quickly heard, writes St. John Chrysostom, which proceeds from a good heart. The head of the virtues is prayer. Their foundation is fasting. If we sow the seeds of prayer without thinning the flesh, then instead of righteousness, we will bring forth the fruit of sin. If the body is thinned by fasting and the soul is not cultivated by prayer, reading, humility, then fasting becomes the parent of numerous tares, spiritual passions, arrogance, vanity, contempt. Being busy with social duties, and if you are a monk, then with obediences, and not being able to devote as much time to prayer as you would like. Do not be embarrassed by this. Nothing is more conducive to success in prayer than a conscience satisfied with God-pleasing activity. Mercy to one's neighbors and humility before them, combined with purity of heart, constitute the foundation and power of prayer. Those who wish to engage in the feat of prayer, before you embark on this podvig, try to forgive everyone who has done any harm to you. The first preparation for prayer consists in the rejection of remembrance and condemnation of one's neighbors. Intending to offer prayer to God, reject all earthly thoughts and cares. Prayer must be performed with faith. It must be based on gentleness. Before a prayer, burn in your heart the incense of fear of God and holy reverence. Try to propitiate the judge with humility. The enemy, he tries to shake the very foundation of prayerful podvig, gentleness and meekness. Preparation for prayer is an unsatiated belly, cutting off cares with the sword of faith, forgiveness from the sincerity of the heart of all offenses, thanksgiving to God for all sorrowful occasions of life, the removal of oneself of absent-mindedness and daydreaming, and reverent fear. Outward reverent standing at prayer is very necessary and very useful for everyone who struggles in the podvig of prayer, especially for a beginner and whom the disposition of the soul is most in accordance with the position of the body. Nothing is more conducive to prayer than obedience, which kills us to the world and to ourselves. Awareness of one's sinfulness, awareness of one's weakness, of one's insignificance is a necessary condition for prayer to be mercifully accepted and heard by God. For the prayer to be correct, it must be pronounced from a heart filled with poverty of spirit, from a contrite and humble heart. Stand in your prayers if you are standing before God himself. St. Ignatius Brangchaninov. March 11, 2014. Thank you, brothers, for joining me. I love you all, and God bless. I will see you again on the next one, God willing. A lot of prostrations at church today. I'm feeling a little bit wrecked. In the Orthodox Church, we do prostrations throughout Lent with our prayers. I don't know how many, a lot. And I was sweating so hard that I was having a hard time reading. It took me a long time to catch my breath to be able to read again. But afterwards, you feel amazing. I love you all, brothers and sisters, and God willing, I'll see you again probably tomorrow night. God bless you all. Talk to God, tell him all the things in your heart. We don't believe in God because it's a religion. We believe in God because he's a reality. He's real and he wants to hear from you. Talk to your Father and talk to your Mother Mary too, the Theotokos. I love you all, brothers and sisters. God bless. Paka paka.